Do we have any representative from general services here? I assume they're not opposed.
No, they're not, I don't see.
Yeah, is it okay to talk? We're all getting used to this new world.
Yeah. Just make sure everybody speaks into the microphones, because the audience can't hear that well. No, that should be muted. This picking up here, it's your microphone on the desk that needs to be on. Okay.
Yeah, let's make a motion to move it on.
Because I'm just learning about this tonight, this particular one, but I do have a question. I'm quite familiar with it in general, but can I ask a question? Yeah.
No questions.
I'm wondering if it would be beneficial for Chicago to mute the sound, because I'm hearing the echo. Watch the videotape, I think, and I'm hearing.
I'm not sure if this mic is on or not. Essentially, my comment would be that in the past, I always thought the city had the authority if there was an immediate health threat. That's the way it has always been done. So I'm not sure what the real precise difference is in this law versus the previous one, other than saying like, if there's a repeat offender and so forth. I would just like to state that I hope that there's clear records kept by the department that identifies those folks, so that other landlords that are doing their best to keep everybody in compliance, including the street, the debris that blows down the street and so on, that we're not getting hurt because of that. Because in the past, they used to just drive around and just bill everybody, and I pulled all those records, and they were pulling in like $500,000 a year, just random fines. So I just don't want it to be a sort of just revenue, but I agree wholeheartedly with keeping the city clean and the intent, and there are certain sections where landlords, as you had stated, that the, just consistent repeat offenders, and we all keep the city clean, so I appreciate the intent, just hope it gets managed correctly.
Anybody else? Anybody else like? Motion on the floor. All in favor? All those against? Well, we can keep some people less and outside with engagement. That may want. So we're going to give them just follow that if you are it's 1 to 4 units, that from the house. 1 to 4 is considered residential, 5 is commercial. So, you are 1 to 4, you are from the men's point of view. Also, to concerns about the card one, time period, short that 60 days. Hopefully that helps us some concern for put out by tenants and plan on the amount of training the impacts for when to have plan costs for training to be looking for. And then we also added a additional this being run from application running for a home parking lot, which is going to be doesn't have release and put the really minimums. So the problem with all these legislation is we clearly rather specifications from landlords and tenants and for landlords. So we put an additional code that would allow when getting some good fish, so again, with each from and as well as non-invasive plants, we have trucks. Then it's getting to the diagram, and now and huge after 30 days and 200 days, about 60 days. If we cause that would be considered good cause for so spoken individuals, we heard people's concerns, we tried to do the best we can to address those fears, address those situations that people are concerned about. Without diluting the goal of the legislation. The goal is to make sure we manage problem and make sure we hold tenants accountable for what they act and treat our city. And that's what. So, any questions? Probably this is your point of view, some public vision. One understanding is how business interact with the state law that is out. So basically, you have to requirement of the state law that you have to clear, parties seeking conviction within New York and that on the good cost terms. There is conflict, the intention is to overall these conditions. Well, the idea is that there would be there's a different overlay in the law, so I mean, the existing law has a procedure for having things brought and does provide, guidelines in that regard, but this governs the substantive showing the CBA, the city court for the addition warrant. And that, again, it's just requiring that the parties seeking conviction warrant demonstrate the big process here. The one cases that we have the rule of these overlaws in law. Well, there are differences, insofar as under the existing state law, we wouldn't be presenting the big process. So that's. You can make that off. I don't see that this is, we're not saying this, I think state law is more or less final, because this is the showing that needs to be made. In the proceedings, so we're sort of. The law is required that renewal. I mean, I hope that it exists, the laws exist now, in this law, the proposed. When landlords decide to go out on a lease, the fact that the tenant still has the right to possession of the apartment until the item voluntarily surrender or the landlord to use eviction law. That means something change for this law, and the only change that the landlord is support looking at the eviction law, they have to have one of these good process eviction, which go through the good process for all the. They're all concept justifications is close to the rule of non-yield that is big. That all is somewhere. Let me tell you, the class of this, I told you we have, we should be proud of the and a new next one. And we have those kinds of people who have, we all have to do right action. But we also have that have a lot of problems that have pushed good things out. And that biggest problem in our city, not really well. And we want to make sure that do not push out to the tenants, because those tenants are pushing high quality of living, high quality of education. That's why I support the added of the additional, renewal pieces. We want to make sure that everybody, we want to make sure everybody knows their education. We want to make sure everybody respects our neighborhoods, respects our community. And don't need to our city. Knowing that this is what it's about. We have created our education for the very beginning and those members are now incentive to pay those applications, as well as incentive to create that economy. That will hopefully allow our city to see some movement in neighborhoods that's been neglected for years, more investment. So one of the questions I have in Boston, if I understand this, this really just had something that before we did it out. But I understand more the attorney general. Yeah, or. Of the revisions they want. With the state. I think it's, I mean, I think it's meant for a lot of stuff. I know that, you know, for instance, buildings and park and incorporate the council law, we enforce state building, with state law. So I think this case, to the extent that there may have been some collision between general state law, that probably would not occur in this way. I don't, yeah, I don't, like, this doesn't necessarily, this doesn't create public law to enforce either. This is government application proceeding would go. And there's changes for, you know, the longer the analysis that the court needs to go through and issuing the more. It's not like something that would be actively enforced by the executive. This is just government prediction proceeding with all these. And the point comes to the law, you know, enacted 2019 to the July. I don't know if we had experience because I watched it here. Did those provisions have any impact? Because now it's almost like place on. Sure. I'm not sure what that is, it's what you're saying. Yeah, I am not sure what that is, when it comes to the state law changes, but what I can say is those laws don't really a good cause, element of the eviction proceeding track here. So what they don't is create protection for the tenants who are paying these provisions, they need, you know, respecting the tenants, maybe not upsetting the neighbors, engaging, or, you know, equitable contact neighborhood. With this one provides them some insurance and some more stability that goes to the main 2019 changes they provide. With those, it basically extended out the time period in which all, you know, an eviction proceeding could be brought. They don't change the system analysis. It's not good cause eviction requirements and those I think there's also on the effective date, where you have something like that, basically not effective at every time.
We can't hear you now, no, I think everybody's.
Yeah, I mean,
We do want to. Yeah.
yeah, very much. So first about there is not any effective date, therefore not something to any people or planners and revision and wonder why. There is an effective date. And if that's something we can do. Yeah, I don't know if some discussion at this point. Most people don't just. Open to hear what presentation. I don't know if this is going to take state law stop it and that might be something, you know, there needs to be some hearing out there where people and God but you need to have effectively for other just, you know, right away. And it's why I would not recommend in terms of drafting, there's actually 30-32, not the under the consolidate section. Section 341 takes care of that. So you can actually put the specific where you want in that section or in section 3, but somebody needs to So I don't have a problem with enacting provision with these qualifications, and providing some standards, one area. I'm still, again, trying to get over, disconnect state law and this, impacting them. But the one area that I'm still trying to kind of head around, is the renewal provisions and the language and option. That there was the renewal, is, no option for the language side, when the piece, not one new piece, that's an option. That's the problem I'm trying to go through. That's been the, focus point of many of my conversations with individuals. Property and that, and then, it's good to hear. Speaking of the microphone, can you hear me? I don't know. So, yeah, that's been one of the big conversations I have with individuals, and in many conversations I had, particularly when was, talk about the biggest portfolio, time of land, most have said, so big, good tenants. Your big tenants say you won't make it flat. So the family comes from the rules of one on your land. All of that is protected. That's why it's so key to have a lease, and that's why the lease, that's part of displaying, having an incentive for landlords to have leases. Too many. So, we don't have the benefit is on the list. You can depend on the kind of debate, with a very limited time of notice. So that's part of the customers. We clear guidelines on our beliefs so that we have standards what's expected in our neighborhoods. And for those individuals who want to be big individuals, because they no longer want them in their properties without any further costs. That's not it. Because I don't remember. You keep your good tenants. You hold on to your good tenants. And those tenants that now come in rules and on effective behavior and guidelines. You can't ask for those. So this is not happening. But this makes it so that we don't push good tenants out. We don't push good people who live in our neighborhoods. We don't think they should live next to individuals who play a game of freedom life. We don't think that they should live with next to individuals who they don't create 56 people after the holidays. That's we're pushing our good behaviors out. And we need to make sure that expectation of this is what we expect from you. Because, we look at the students, they come and look into our neighborhoods. We don't expect our neighborhoods. Why? They look in our neighborhoods back home, but they do it here because the expectation has been low. So now, landlords have the responsibility to raise their expectations. wait for your application and don't push out, later.
Yeah, no, I don't, it really has my experience way more. Years on work, but yeah, I had everything. Do like one key. So, that's why it is. Maybe a couple of times because it's little. Yes, it's simple. Those are the questions I had to think about. The issue of rules is still in my app. Effectively, I think the case is not that. Richard, effectively, something like this, the 9 days. I don't remember. Got it. Whatever it is, at some point soon, that there will be some planning, to get $5 or $15 or something that's not in here. I don't know if we, in terms of, I one part of the report. Putting out that information, simplify funds that are really here. What is it about? What the race is responsible for. Yeah.
I'm concerned about the ability of some boards to address problem tenants and balance that this legislation raises expectations with regard to landlords dealing with those. What specific language in here is it that shows we are raising expectations?
There also is incentive for landlords to have good leases and have this conversation, all conversation. All small acts to be able to address issues with tenants that are housing, and also it protects tenants who are housing, but complaining about farming items as well, or, tenants not being, labeled, tenants not being, good neighbors. So I think it's kind of backing of it because it definitely raises the stakes for everybody involved. At least it's better.
So, I'm looking at this from the perspective of a common council member who has been complaints over the years. Residents who are affected about the tenants that are created trash, noise, too many pets, a wide variety of circumstances. I've also heard from men who are concerned Whatever it's going to be, and they're getting those. I want to say that there is what there could be an expectation in here that language is not going to work for the provision in leases. There's nothing that's written in here. It doesn't say what behaviors are specifically expected of tenants. The last time this meeting was discussing this particular legislation, the number of people and the number of town council members raised these concerns with regard to if you don't have these, you need to do that. Or if you don't have a lease written now that addresses some of the potentially problematic behaviors, including potentially smuggling issues, loud cats, party, etc. There doesn't appear to be a mechanism by which a landlord can now impose those kinds of regulations, those kinds of expectations on a tenant, because the tenant will continue under the existing terms of an existing lease. Essentially entitled to a renewal of that lease, from what I'm seeing, a landlord who wants to impose specific regulations on guidelines is not, it appears as though this legislation could be read as prohibiting the landlord from imposing those new terms on a tenant who is on the act. I would expect this decision to address the specific that in paragraph 2, where it talks about and we find violating the obligation, but that should be clear with regard to what that is, and suggestion to provide some the landlord exactly with the tools to meet some of the obligations that we all expect them to comply with. So I expect that in addition to violating the potential obligation of their tenants, yet including all reasonable imposed on others by the landlord to ensure compliance with all local, state, and federal laws, to have the conditions of unit for all common areas, to ensure the quiet and peaceful employment of residents of other units in neighboring properties, including limitation pets, smoking, loud noises, and the need for threatening behaviors. That can directly of the concerns that were raised in the reaction to some sort of specific clarifying that the language to impose those kinds of rules and regulations. Let's see.
So, I mean, any kind of objectionable behavior is for the stars, made by that, but I think it's on very quickly, like around 2.15. You know, I think the idea of spelling out exactly what is going to be objectionable behavior is something, but the fact that it's here provides folks with that opportunity to apply the law to the facts of the How can we get the resort, you know, with, of the neighbors, we have, we want to, you know, specify, maybe just. Yeah, so, can you repeat that? The section is section 235. So in terms of you said, you know, 10 and 5 and potentially be something. In the word 10 in particular, in the 10 is difficult, maybe legislative or legislative exams, or then conduct, some sort of understanding, or other things, or occupancy, the same for. I think any kind of objection will find a possibility to think the system describes, you know, condition of big courts, you know, apply that language to, you know, provide conditional word and cases where it's appropriate. And again, something government trying to list out everything's possible behavior that want to be objectionable, but they're going to end up missing things, including them, and ultimately all unworkable. And although too, you know, and suggested language, you know, you can say, you know, you can impose agreement with the tenant, but they're not allowed to comply with state laws and things like that. It's not forbidden. You know, we have rules against traffic violations in buildings, in buildings, rules against over applications, so those laws do exist, and they do provide a grounds for eviction that the current laws and proposed. And I think the, you know, council's idea of grant the landlord the sort of unilateral ability to impose new conditions on the tenancy, open up the can of worms.
First of all, I just want to know that when you use the term committing or creating use, in housing valuation, doesn't address when that might be a nuisance to other neighboring properties. That the courts are generally interpretation of the legal term nuisance a nuisance. The reality is we often and we rarely use that for enforcement code violation. I think because you know the legal standard relatively high. On one hand, Ms. Valley was talking about neighbors having hard conversations with tenants about expectations regarding their behavior. Directly contrary to what Mr. Heath with regard to them utilizing establishment in speech. I am not looking at this decision to lay out every single looking for landlord to be given some ability to establish reasonable rules and regulations regarding conduct and to address some of the concerns that people have raised. I will say that the prospect of marijuana becoming legal, a number of tenants and landlords have expressed concerns about if there's no regulation regarding no smoking in an apartment building at the time, then other people may be subject to inhaling that smoke, which is more pungent and seems to, its effects seem to carry more than cigarettes within the building. It can be very noticeable. So that's just one issue that people raise a lot of issues that I don't think that these changes are addressing. Thank you.
So the key is not to get too in the weeds. When you legislation, what individuals, have and don't have in their leases. So, I mean, by putting 2, 3, and 5, you're making it clear that you should have a lease. And the landlords can be fine where they want to have smoking or don't have smoking in their property. It's not limited by what we are putting on the law. What we are saying is, the property owner creates standards. If the property owner wants to allow smoking in their property, that is their choice. If they don't, then it should be in their lease, and it should be very clearly in their lease. So you don't want to get too in the weeds, where then it becomes too much of a situation where it can be fought on in court. That's part of what we have to have that balance. We have to have that balance where we're still allowing individuals to decide if they want to go in the lease or don't want to be in the lease. Some landlords will still choose to be month-to-month with no lease. That's their choice. We're not telling them they have to be in the lease. We are telling them it's an incentive to be in the lease. There's an incentive to actually have clear guidelines. There's an incentive to, define what is acceptable and not acceptable.
So I just have one follow-up question. Mr. McGee. If a landlord has not previously said anything about there cannot be smoking on the premises prior to the effective date of this, can that landlord now tell a tenant that they cannot smoke? I do not want to have smoke on the premises.
Yes. And then what the landlord says in that situation is you're smoking, damaging the premises, that gives me good cause to evict you on the grounds for illegal law, and if you don't stop them, then it's a eviction.
And where does that right to impose new conditions on a tenant come up? Which section of this 2, 3, or 5 would you be referring to if you were a landlord?
It would be section 3. I mean, it's somewhat of a blunt instrument, but we're empowering landlords to pursue an eviction when a tenant engages in objectionable behavior of that nature. So if they're smoking, if they're playing music until 4 in the morning, upsetting the neighbors, all of those are grounds for eviction under Section 3. And the landlord has the ability to impose those conditions based on the landlord's power to pursue an eviction on those grounds.
So Mr. Ballard has said that some people don't find smoking objectionable. So, but some landlords do think go into a court of law and say that is a nuisance now.
If they're making the case, and I think they would make it pretty easily, that smoking inside the car is damaging the apartment, then they would be entitled to an eviction warrant. Okay, we can move on to public comment.
We're gonna have okay, let's open up public comments now. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and this is just comments. It's not good to take away from the
The first speaker that I have signed up is Deborah Kusatiri.
Good evening. I first want to thank you for your time. I want to apologize for my appearance. There are buildings on fire in the lead, and mine is the next to go up, and I'm praying to God it doesn't. And I just want to say that the reason the buildings are on fire, from what I was told, is because the neighboring tenants were hoarders, and the landlord couldn't get them out, and with good cause. Now I have tenants that are homeless because of that. I just wanted to share that. This is emotional for me. Thank God my tenants are fine, my animals are fine, but this is another reason, good cause, the landlord really needs the time needs the ability to make the decisions on whether the tenants would fit. Before I ramble on again, I was working at home on trying to make a nice statement, then I got a call that the building was on fire, so this may be a little patched together, and I apologize. I want to start with reading out the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. I've given you folks a breakdown. I'm going to read the highlighted sections because I also, over the years, we forget what it says. So I just wanted to share with you folks what really the law system and the guidelines for the people, we the people, should be. In the preamble, it states the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, the nation's fundamental law. But the broad language of the Constitution is illuminated by the principles set forth in the Declaration. The cardinal moral truths are these. All men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. It also states that no one has rights superior to those of anyone else. Moreover, we are born with those rights. We do not get them from government. And our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness imply the right to live our lives as we wish, to pursue happiness as we think best by our own lights, provided only that we respect the equal rights of others to do the same, drawing the implication upon the common law tradition of liberty, property, and contract, its principles rooted in right reason. The founders thus outlined the moral foundations of a free society. We institute government, the Declaration says, to secure our rights. Our natural rights and the rights we create as we live our lives. It also states that it's my duty as we the people to make sure that the powers of the government aren't abused. It then goes on to state in section, okay, well, I'll just read right here, Article 1, Section 10. It says, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Our lease is a contract between us and the tenant, whether it's oral or written, and no state, per the Constitution, has the right to interfere in that contract. It's written, I've given you the copy of the paragraph. With all due respect, I would ask that you respect our constitutional laws as well. The good landlords will stay, the bad landlords, as covered by the HSTPA, which does conflict with good cause. The HSTPA, that is shown. Okay, thank you.
Rebecca Garrard is the next speaker.
Yes, thank you. So much to say in 3 minutes. I think I'm going to start by saying that I certainly hope we're not going to let a document written by white slave owners define our policy decision-making as we think about what's best for the residents of Albany. Number one, first and foremost. Two, the HSTPA addressed really the length of time for evictions. This is the case for any state law, right? It provides the bare minimum that we can do in terms of housing policy, but municipalities are always empowered to do more. And so good cause eviction legislation would do just that. It would supplement as Mr. McGee said, and enhance housing protections in the city of Albany, which we desperately need. We have a housing crisis. It is well documented, it has existed before COVID, and it is in dire need of being addressed. In terms of the example that was brought up by the last speaker, we have a moratorium in place that is related to COVID. Evictions were allowed, and they will continue to be allowed, even after good cause passes. What will not be allowed are retaliatory evictions, so that when tenants are advocating for safe living conditions, they are evicted in retaliation. When they are asking to be in a place that is free of lead, that has heat, hot water, they will not run a risk of eviction. And what it will do is ensure that landlords can still profit, but tenants will not be subject to predatory rent increases that are fueling a price crisis here in this city. That means tenants cannot afford to live here. They are choosing between food, healthcare, basic essentials, and housing. And so, I want to be very clear. You're either going to choose to start to address that crisis as a council, or you're going to say it's more important that a landlord should not be inconvenienced and have to go to court to evict a tenant instead of simply not renewing a lease. And I would really hope that this council errs on the side of ensuring that tenants have stable housing rather than that a landlord is inconvenienced by having to go to a court proceeding. Thank you.
Caitlin Guilty is the next speaker. Audra Brumfield. Elisa Winter.
Hi, I'm Elisa Winter. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I've been both a landlord and a renter. I will never be a landlord again for just that reason. We had bad renters and we couldn't wait for them to go. But I can't imagine a situation where my family would want to upset the renters' lives to the extent that they upset ours. We don't work that way. We couldn't even imagine retaliation. We gave them their deposit back just so that they would go away and leave us alone. The $1,000 was worth it just to let them have it back. It pains me to think that people wanting to live in decent, safe surroundings, expecting that, requiring that, could be forced to leave because their landlord couldn't be bothered to do the right thing, make the repairs, do the cleanups. A whole building just fell down in Miami. Probably not the tenants' faults. Probably somebody not paying attention, like whoever owned the thing. So let's not let that happen in Albany. Let's not kick out families who are asking to live in safe spaces. Thank you.
Ali Chafin. Shantia Hammond. Jason Martino. Steph Evers. Dragon. Ann Musad. John Milanese. Gabrielle Smith Jenkins. Lori Jenkins. Crystalline McCall or Mitchell. Malia Bigham. Violetta DeRosa.
Hello, my name is Violetta Rosa. I'm 40 Grove Avenue. I'm a resident of Albany. I would like to ask you all to support local law F. I don't know why we're really arguing about good cause eviction. I think the law says that it's right in name, good cause. Unfortunately, in the city of Albany, we do have a housing crisis. We have a 5-year wait for affordable housing, so many of our landlords, many of our families have to live in slums because that's what they can afford, because we have not done our job. I ask you to support this law because I'm really tired of hearing stories from my students that don't have heat, that their glass of water freezes in the winter because they don't have enough heat, but their parents can't say anything or to their landlord. I'm really tired of those stories. And when I'm here, I'm speaking for our children. And I know that we have my parents, we lived in a duplex. We had good tenants, they were good landlords. Unfortunately, in the city of Albany, as we know, and I'm pretty sure each one of you know exactly who those landlords are in your ward, who are the problems. And so we need to make sure that we are addressing those, and that's what this law will do. I really implore you, this is one step that we need to take as a community so that we can start addressing affordable housing and making this community accessible for everyone, especially our tenants, when we think about what our owner occupancy rate is in the city of Albany. Thank you very much, and I ask you to support local law F.
Thank you.
Summer Jordan.
Good evening, I'm Summer Jordan, and I'm in support of the Good Cause Act. Some of the points that I would like to make this evening is that I believe that people that pay their rent as well are good tenants. They should have rights to protect them and their homes. People in this community, they work hard and they should not have to decide between having a roof over their head, food in their mouth, clothes on their backs for their children or heat. So that's one point. We have people losing their jobs due to them being in unstable living conditions. People are just finding a way to, so to speak, make it, and I believe that these people are they also should be supported. These buildings are also gentrified by people who are not taxpayers in our community. This is making people fearful as well, intimidated. People have been living with poor living conditions for years on end. There's parents, students in a state of an emergency. There's people that are essential workers right now in this community, and they have to, so to speak, depend on. They don't have a secure living condition as far as the rent being raised. I just believe that people are going to be making money from the inner city, that they should protect the inner city as well. They shouldn't just profit off of it. We are the people, we are part of this community, we should be acknowledged. You shouldn't just profit off of us. We are part of this community. We're not going to be kicked out, we're not going to be silenced. We need this for the cause, as everyone who's one says, it's good cause. Thank you.
Siobhan Motley, Brad Feeney, Gabrielle Silva,
Thank you. So I'm going to make some of my statements about the good cause a bit brief. Basically, right now, you have hundreds of tenants across Albany who are living in unsafe, dangerous conditions, and they can't do anything about it because they're scared they're going to be evicted for no cause and be retaliated against. I just spoke to a tenant a few days ago who has stairs leading up to her apartment that are falling apart. People have fallen through them before. She has a rat infestation that has taken all of the insulation out of her homes, and this no longer has the heat during the winter. There are bricks falling apart outside of her home. That building is close to being condemned, and nothing is being done about it because an absentee landlord who lives in New York City only wants her money in his pocket and not doing anything to improve the properties here in Albany. So small landlords, good landlords, everybody in Albany wants this bill because we have people who aren't being evicted all the time, people who aren't having their jobs significantly affected, children who are not having to go to a different school because they're having to move to a different neighborhood. You end up having neighborhoods with a sense of community who actually care about their neighborhoods. And then when you have that, you have less poverty, more stability, less crime, less gun violence, and more businesses are going to want to move into Albany, and more tenants will want to stay here. This is good for everybody. But, you know, there's been some really great points brought up already, but I would just like to point out also that on Friday, at the last minute, this council decided to cancel the virtual aspect of this meeting. Every single one of those names that have just been read out that aren't here were all constituents who wanted to have their voice heard and were expecting to have the virtual option in order to do so. But they have been effectively silenced by this committee because despite having 16 months of a pandemic, knowing that this inevitable situation was going to happen, somehow we are still not prepared and none of those people are going to have their voices heard. But I would like to make a request to the committee. Every one of those people also submitted a statement in their application, and I would like every one of those statements to be read out in front of the Common Council. And please support a good cause. In response to what one of the other people mentioned, the preamble mentions life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It does not put property over life, and this good cause bill will only ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the majority of people in Albany, of your constituents who are tenants. So support good cause evictions. We need it. Thank you.
Kristen Copper,
Hello, I'm Kristen Copper. I'm a member of Housing for All, and I'm speaking in support of Local Law F. In 2019, there was 4,120 eviction proceedings filed in Albany City Court, and the sheriff completed 767 eviction lockouts. In 2018, there was 5,197 eviction proceedings filed in the court, and 840 eviction lockouts. That's 840 households that were evicted from their home in a single year. Those numbers are alarming and prove the need for good cause legislation in Albany. Good cause is simply asking that a landlord have a valid reason to remove a tenant from their home. Good cause will allow tenants to safely ask for needed repairs in their buildings. It will encourage landlords and tenants to invest in the community here, and it will support family and home stability. I support Local Law F because it will make positive changes for Albany. Thank you.
Betty Ann Zinware,
I'm a member of CADARPO, the Capital District Association of Rental Property Owners. CADARPO was organized in the 70s in a time such as this to partner with the City of Albany to set up effective and fair regulations to end the era of slumlords, very many of them out-of-town investors milking properties until they dump them, and to educate and mentor those who wanted to be good landlords. I just want to mention that we were not contacted about good cause. Residents of Albany have been receiving very commercially produced flyers and tags as part of a campaign urging them to contact their Common Council member in support of good cause. What outside interests have an oar in this fight of their creation? It cannot be those who are so poor that they are living in illegal units. This is about Albany, not New York City. And the city of Albany has been derelict in identifying folks who have illegal rental units and who never applied for ROPs. That's why water's freezing in glasses and there are all these other issues. I urge the council to hold on good cause until the city has done its diligence in identifying and rooting out illegal units by doing a simple computer run of buildings with the capacity for multiple units and without ROPs. Bring the units with the potential to be legal up to code and then see if people are being evicted for complaining about unlivable conditions. There's a basic misunderstanding as well. Tenants are assumed to be victims of large institutional businesses.
1 minute remaining.
While in Albany, a huge proportion of landlords are neighborhood folks who could be seriously financially impacted excuse me, by one bad tenant. There are multiple perspectives. If you saw units trashed by tenants because they can no longer be held accountable for their actions, you would better comprehend the economics. The HSTPA of 2019 already interfered with free market rents, causing necessary rental increases and many sales. If you pass good cause, it will further raise costs and rents and cause a further reduction in good, small-time neighborhood landlord unit availability. And who's it benefiting? The next order of business, I understand, is to get rid of the grouper law. Who is that benefiting?
Time's
Not the small landlord or his tenants, but owners trying to make a quick buck.
Time.
I'm so done. Thank you.
Roger Markovich.
All right, my name is Roger Markovich. I live at 38 Brittle Avenue. I've been here numerous times before. Spent a lifetime working with United Tenants of Albany. And I want to thank the folks in this room, particularly Farrell Dalaran, for sponsoring this legislation. Oh, okay. Is this better? Yeah, I kind of know this. All right. So the good cause legislation is really a principle we're talking about here, about the equitable treatment of tenants, and the reference to the Declaration of Independence and stuff, that the word property was in it along with making contracts, etc. The word property back then also meant owning slaves, you know? So like, we got to get more modern about this. The property stuff in that referred to a form of ownership based on the feudal practices of Europe, you know, with a landlord was a duke, an earl, a king, etc., like that. And it's been modified by housing codes and environmental considerations and non-discrimination and a lot of other stuff. So, but the most important modification is the treatment of tenants. And a lot of the discussion about with landlords about it is that they're concerned about protecting their equity. You know, we're defining equity in terms of justice, and they're defining equity as their investment in housing. That equity, that monetary equity, is actually provided by the tenants. The tenants pay the landlords, then pay the banks, you know, and to develop equity for them. The tenants get no return on them, no financial return on them. Get quiet enjoyment, and they get to live in the building, but their rights are not recognized in this business arrangement, and that needs to be changed by further protecting tenants' rights to habitation.
1 minute remaining.
And so the equity, we're talking about the same thing as Mayor Sheehan talks about her equity agenda. It's really we had to have a sea change in thinking about the equity situation. The best way of thinking about it in terms of like owning a property is stewardship as a way of managing property, as opposed to this feudal system of absolute control by a landlord. And stewardship is about respecting the rights of others in the management of property. The tenants do it, but other neighbors in the community, it's community-wide. And I think I want to throw out two different concepts of property ownership. I'll do it real quickly. One is American Indian proverb that land is not something that we inherit, but it's something we borrow from our children. And the second one is an African proverb, for land is something that belongs to a great number of people, some of whom are dead, many of whom are living now, and most are yet to be born. So I think if we think about these kind of concepts about what this legislation is pointing to. Thank you.
Judge Feinman?
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the history lesson today. I really appreciate that. I feel I'm back in Albany High School. But anyway, I am opposed, we are opposed to this. Somebody stated statistics of evictions. Of the statistics of the evictions in 2018, it was less than 3%, actually it was less than 1% that were evicted for other than non-payment of rent. Think about that. Less than 1% were for non-payment of rent. Second of all, I believe at the meeting that was called and changed from a Zoom meeting to in person was not duly notified to the public for everybody to attend. I believe that is why the Zoom and so forth was probably poorly attended and that people were unable to be heard this afternoon. Finally, the fact I do not know anybody, and I've been in this business over 40 years, many of you I know. I don't know any landlord who says, I'm going to rent to you and evict you in 3 months. I don't know anybody that says I'm going to rent to a tenant or go through an application process and everything else, finally get that applicant approved. Mind you, it costs a lot of money to get somebody finally completed in that process, doing all the background information and so forth, before you actually render the signing of a lease in that legal binding contract. So the tenant has looked at the apartment, the landlord has looked at the apartment, the tenant has accepted that apartment in the condition in which they see. I have to believe landlords do not rent substandard apartments and a resident slash applicant is not willing to go into an apartment that is substandard. Pretty serious thought about that, right? Okay, just like I doubt somebody would go into the Price Chopper store. That Price Chopper store is 30 times more expensive than the ShopRite store. Speaking of which, the cost of goods today has skyrocketed over 30%. Groceries, gasoline, cost of goods to keep the apartments up.
1 minute remaining.
Insurance, etc. I think this needs to be tabled. Further discussion needs to be brought up. I'd also say the fact that with the devaluing of the code enforcement that people are afraid to call code is uncanny. Code is a private phone call to them, and that's how it is. Thank you.
Steve Alvarez?
I just want to talk about personal responsibility, and it kind of goes along with what Judge just had said, and I second all of that. And I look at item 2 here, the tenant violating the substantial obligation of tenancy. And I think that what I've noticed over the last 20 years of managing a couple hundred units, about 60 some odd buildings within about a mile and a half in the city of Albany, is that although code might have good intentions, the problem ends up being that they don't violate the tenant, the actual person who caused the problem. So they end up putting the landlord on the hook. The tenant knows that every time they don't want to pay rent or cause a problem, they just go in there, punch holes in the wall, you know, they'll leave all their garbage all over the place, cause all kinds of problems, and then we get violated. And it doesn't work that way. I mean, it's never gonna work. We're never gonna be able to properly manage these properties if we don't have the teeth of the government behind us against the actual perpetrators of the issue. Landlords don't buy buildings, invest in the city or anywhere for that matter, and then hope to put in a bad tenant and cause all kinds of trouble. So, the law is completely misguided, and it doesn't do anything. I'm not sure the gentleman's name there, but next to Mr. McGee, it doesn't do any of that stuff. And in fact, it hinders the landlords from being able to get people out of the buildings that none of us want there. But I also recognize that people have to live somewhere, and it comes down to personal responsibility. If you're just expecting landlords to be mommy and daddy to all these bad people and, you know, just be at the whims of their poor behaviors, it's not going to work. So, of course, non-payment, that's why we mainly get people out, but we never go the other route because the lawyers advise us, if you try to get somebody out of the property for all of their poor behavior, you're not getting through that court system. It'll be too expensive, you get stopped by the judge, and you'll be back to square one all over again. So the whole reason that we like a notice to vacate or a non-renewal is because we know that we can
1 minute remaining.
And become a holdover tenant. It's a much easier proceeding to get somebody out because we just want good people in the building. You're hindering that. This law doesn't do anything to help what your intent is. And then one thing I want to also mention, this is a veiled attempt at rent control, unacceptable. It violates our constitutional rights and contractual obligations. It's a market manipulation. What's that going to do? We're all going to run back and figure out all of our leases and get this stuff hammered through and get our rates as high as we can immediately before we can compete in the highly inflationary market due to the money supply that's being pumped into our country through the Federal Reserve and so forth. So you're not seeing the big picture here. You're really hindering our ability to get what we want. We all want the same thing, clean, safe city. And then other little things like Item 11, purchase and sales contract is where you should really have that clause, not after the fact, because you want to be able to negotiate. Basically, all these clauses have to be rewritten. I would love to be a part of that process because I know it inside and out. But I also want to thank everybody for their proper discussion. I was pleasantly surprised
Time's up.
members that they actually had a lot of questions. So thank you so much.
John O'Brady.
I'm John Brady, I'm a homeowner for about 45 years, before that a tenant in Albany for 12 years. I find myself apathetic to both sides here. I definitely am down on the side of passing good cause eviction. Basically, I just think that it evens the adversarial relationship if that's what's going to happen. A property owner, in my opinion, has intrinsically more power than an adversarial situation than a tenant would have. He has more money, he has more knowledge of the law. It shouldn't come to adversarial situations, but it does. I don't think this law is going to do a lot, really, to get rid of bad tenants or bad landlords in the short run. But at least it evens the score a bit when there's an adversarial situation, and that's what I like about the law.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that concludes the people that we had signed up for public comment. There is a gentleman in the back that did not sign up. If you would like to permit him to speak, I would like to acknowledge him.
He's my constituent, so take the word to speak.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Asaf Okrian. I manage about 250 apartments in the city of Albany. Want to state what Judd and Steve said, touched base on very good points. Like in life, 5% of the people cause 90% of the headache. We as landlords, like Judd said, we do not rent to somebody with the intention of kicking them out. Our goal is, every time somebody moves out, it costs us $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to turn over their apartment, show the apartment, get the next tenant, sign the lease, get them approved, verify references. We want long-term tenants. We aim to give good housing, get to tenants and in turn get our money the same way the city wants us to pay their city taxes, their school taxes, their ROP, their water bill. If you continue with these kind of bills, you will prevent housing. You'll make a much bigger housing crisis than it supposedly is. I don't really see there's a housing crisis at all in the city of Albany. If you want to get an apartment, you can get an apartment within 10 minutes, and I'll find you one if you want. People need to understand in social responsibility. You take out your garbage, you keep your apartment clean. The same way Coast expects us to keep our apartments up to code, get an ROP, smoke detectors, the whole 9 yards. We want the tenants to do their part. When you do not have the ability at the end of the lease to terminate somebody, and that becomes a lifelong residency, that's theft of property. That's what Debbie was touching upon. You are stealing our property.
1 minute remaining.
Preventing us from taking care of what we need to take care of. We don't want bad tenants. That's our ability to take them out. Like Steve touched, we cannot evict somebody based on no smoking. No judge in the world is going to hear you and evict you because the landlord says you're smoking in a no smoking apartment. The judge is going to throw that out and just postpone it and postpone it. But at the end of the lease, if I don't want the tenant anymore because he's just, truthfully, paid my buck for the last year, I want him out. This law should not prevent us from getting him out. We want our money, we want to keep our properties, we want to keep our tenants happy. These kind of laws just keep making more and more problems. It's going to make more problems with the housing, more landlords will not. I personally sold over 20 properties in the last 18 months. Ever since the New York State passed, it's just...
Time's up.
Is it possible to hear another person?
Okay, I haven't signed that, so everybody, go ahead.
I haven't signed that.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm a small landlord in Albany. Even though I'm a landlord, I think rents are too high. I think what this law is going to do is going to raise the rent because what you're doing, you have to build in that cost. It's harder to evict someone. Now, people that don't have hot water and I've never seen that, and I don't understand how that could happen with code enforcement and with ROPs. But I know, I mean, Roger said that, you know, land ownership is you don't really own the land. You pass it on. You're a custodian for your lifetime, and then you pass it on. But you know, when code comes over and they say that there's something wrong with your building, believe it or not, you own that headache. So you have to deal with it. I know that, I mean, someone else touched on equality and equity, and I think what you're doing here is going beyond equity. You're giving the tenant the upper hand, and I think in an unjust way. And it's just human nature. When you have that power, you're going to abuse it. And I know because I have properties where there's people that haven't been paying rent for this whole entire pandemic. And good luck trying to get that money. What I've had to do is take out loans, mortgages, so I'll be paying 30 years so that others can live for free for a year and a half. There's people who are playing the system, you're giving them more to play with. And in the long run, the rent is going to increase. It's going to get much higher than it is now. And if you really want to go through with this law, then I would recommend that the city of Albany start building public housing because landlords are going to be a lot stricter on accepting tenants. I'm not that
1 minute remaining.
I'm not that big, but I know there's probably bigger people who are going to buy my property because I have it for sale. And they're going to be a lot more sophisticated. And those people that I have aren't going to make the cut. In the city of Albany, the state of New York, whoever, the government is going to have to house these people. So what you're doing now is just giving too much of an advantage, and they're gonna abuse it because that is human nature. Regardless if you're a tenant or a landlord, you're human. You're gonna abuse that power that you have. And believe me, I know, I've been living with this for 16 and a half months since this moratorium was enacted in March 2013 of last year. So the people who should be the angriest about this is not the landlords. It should be the good tenants who pay the rent, because that money, that cost is going to be rolled into their rental payments. And I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Okay. Want to start with Richard, and then we can go to Simon. Okay, start with members of the committee.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments I was stating. One, when it comes to the Constitution, like I stated at the last meeting, this does not affect owner occupied 1 or units. We even adjusted the wording to make it very clear. If you live in a residential home and you are renting out your residential home, this is not affected. That is a constitutional protection. I also want to add that some of these arguments are old. They're the same arguments that were used against HUD when we were trying to make it so that you couldn't discriminate against race. Those are the same arguments. Those same constitutional arguments were made back then. So that's the history of those types of arguments being used in these types of issues. And the court said, you have the right of freedom of association in your home, but not when you rent outside of your home, when it's non-owner occupied. And that's what this policy will be affecting. I also want to touch on some comments that I agree with, that individuals are not angels. And unfortunately, if we had all angels, if we were all angels, we wouldn't have to create policies and laws to address those who are not. And this policy is to address those who are not angels, who have abused their power, who have abused their position, and who have made it so that our neighborhoods have decayed. So I appreciate all the conversations I've had over the last few months on this issue, and I appreciate all the landlords that I've spoken to, and many of them are doing it right. And if you're doing it right, if you got a clear lease that's very clearly defined what your expectations are, if you take care of your property, you created that environment, then you're going to worry about it. But if you have not, then you're going to have to do some more work. And as far as individuals selling their properties, right now the market is hot. It is a great time to sell. So a lot of people are taking advantage of the fact that the market is great for property owners. I'm a real estate agent. I see it on Chico all the time. Properties are going up. That's good for you. And that's great. I mean, we want that. We want equity. We want our property values to be going up. But that is also a reason why people are selling. And if bad landlords are going to sell, that's not a bad thing. And that's why number 11 is important. Because it makes it so the new landlords can come in there and put in good, strong leases and make it so that the property is quality, then that's great. I also want to touch on very quickly, because I know we want to go. You know, you can move into an apartment in June and not know that the heat is not working. Landlords are not required to, by law, we are not required to provide heat until October. So if your heat's not working, by law, the landlord is not required until October to provide that heat. So if there are several situations, in May, where our residents walk in thinking that something's going to be fine, and then when they need it, it's not. And that's when you're using space heaters to keep your infants warm. And that's wrong. And that's what's happening in my neighborhood. That's what's happening to my residents. That's what's happening to my neighbors. And that's not right. So, I believe this will hold everybody accountable. I believe this will put us on the right track to hold our property owners and our tenants. There needs to be an incentive for property owners to take ownership over their properties, over their investment, and over the tenants that they bring into our community. So I'm going to ask the committee to discuss it and to vote it out of committee today. Thank you.
No, well, I'll frankly say, I think this is a very noble intent, and I appreciate all the work that has been put into it, both by Ron King and by Alfredo. I do, however, listen to, concerns that Richard raised about possible preeminence of state law, and Judy's concerns about some of the ambiguities of paragraph 10. I volunteered a little bit with the delay in building inspections, and my experience was that state law preempted on landlord-tenant relationships. So I guess I have some reservations about whether we would win if this law was challenged. And in 2019, when the state legislature did a dramatic overhaul of the landlord-tenant law, in increasing rights of tenants, they had a few things that invited localities, for example, we could apply for rent control, but there were certain steps that we had to do, and we never did. So I suppose it could be argued that the city is trying to usurp power in the provision that one of the state rent increase to 5%. But I do not, my intention is to vote this out of committee so that the whole council can have a vote. I have my reservations about voting favorable recommendation, but I think should not be made. It's been pending for a long time, and months. So my intention would be to make it to vote for this passage activity to the whole council without a specific recommendation. And I guess I just have one question. I did not know that you don't have to turn the heat on until October, but I do believe that our code inspectors, when they do an ROP, check for the heating permits. And Rick is nodding yes. That's a small thing.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember O'Brien about the Women's Center Committee with a no recommendation. When I think about this law, I think about a tenant in the first ward who is very nervous to have codes come and inspect all the issues in her house for fear of retaliation from her landlord. Meanwhile, she's lived in this house for 5 years now. It's only been deteriorating, and she hasn't seen any improvements, and her rent has been jacked up $400 since moving in. This is what good cause eviction is trying to prevent here. I think a lot of good landlords spoke today and many days before who are doing the right thing already. You are investing in your property and taking care of your tenants, and it's a mutual relationship. And I think that this is addressing the bad landlords, the one that I just discussed here, who's not making any improvements to the property, who doesn't care, who's just focused on getting that rent. And so therefore, I'm in favor of voting out of committee with no recommendation, and I commend the sponsor for the adjustments that he made since the last revision. Thank you.
No. This is something that we all take lightly, but we do understand that, particularly in the city of Albany, when it comes to housing decay, and also some of the eviction numbers that were illustrated before the pandemic, and even during the pandemic, and we're going to see in the next year or so. I strongly believe, and as one of the only tenants on the council, I strongly believe that housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. And very too often, there are some individuals who believe that since it's their property, their tenants don't have rights. That cannot go on in our city. We have to make sure that everyone is protected. It is a good cause. Again, it is a good cause. If there are criminal activity that's happening in your property, Councilman Anani will help you evict that tenant. If these are, we have some of these issues that are illustrated right here in the legislation, 9 reasons. So if you have any other reasons to evict a tenant that's not in this, we had several months to discuss it, and we believe we don't want to create mass homelessness. As an educator, when you evict someone, you think about evicting the tenant, you look at the children, the families who are involved. It disrupts their education, it disrupts their quality of life. Very too often, government has to pick up the tab and help them either with a homeless shelter or put them in a hotel, which is costing taxpayers. This is a good cause legislation. I want to thank Rob McGee. I want to thank the sponsor. And I firmly believe this is a step in the right direction to address the quality of life that many of our tenants endure and go through on a consistent basis. And I will support this when it comes to the floor. As, again, one of the only tenants on the council, I know what many tenants go through in this city. As someone who represents a majority tenant household, tenant district, I know and I hear the stories that many of them go through. This piece of legislation is a step in the right direction. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it's a step in the right direction to let everyone know in this city that housing is a human right. Thank you.
Just like to say, we've been hearing an awful lot, and to hear it repeated from both sides. Both have very good, legitimate complaints. I don't want to compromise them, okay? Like Richard said, it's difficult to understand. I mean, for us, which will support the legislation for 35 years, I have also. And if somebody, a tenant, maybe a landlord, doesn't know about it, doesn't even know how they look at it. So what's the have to do? He has to hire an attorney. Okay? I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to comprehensive and stuff. For both some landlord and some tenant. So that's the one thing that stands out to me. And you made a point about an effective date. My effective date would be maybe not in April, okay? And it expires or somehow has to be looked at in a period of time. Maybe 180 days, that's probably not enough, because I think the housing court will still be backed up by it. I think you have to have a point, kind of, in essence, when everything will be ready to go with this here. So there's some like this one. And I don't know, it's just everybody here has a lot of good to say, okay, and understand each other better. But everyone's not going to come out and win. And I do believe in good cause. I think it comes both sides of this issue. And I just think it's a difficult piece of legislation that will be for a lot of things. And so we got 2 minutes, okay?
So I want to say that I favor like everybody does here, the idea of, or most people do, the idea of good cause eviction. I agree that housing is a human right. However, we have a piece of legislation before us that has flaws that need to be fixed. I would prefer to see this committee address those issues in committee rather than this being put to a floor vote in its current condition. I want to note, I defy anybody on this committee to read the one sentence that makes up the 11th provision that now is been added to this. I want to note that it says that essentially the landlord, I can't figure out the timeframes and whether these timeframes work. 30 days, 60 days, a landlord is forced to negotiate a new contract with the tenant, which I believe that new landlord's rights to contract are being violated by this particular provision. And the fact that they can't raise the tenant's rent in that is also a violation. But I also want to note that the fact that it says that the landlord can't materially alter the terms of the tenant's existing unwritten lease basically flies in the face of what Mr. McGee is saying and saying, oh gee, you can now say to the tenant, I'm not going to allow smoking. Or what Mr. Gallery is saying in terms of landlords are now going to be able to impose specific requirements on tenants. So there's major flaws in this legislation. We agreed something in theory. We need to make sure the legislation, the wording here actually reflects what we intend the courts to enforce, what we expect the landlords will be able to do, and what we expect the tenants should be able to do. The main thing we want tenants to be able to do is to be able to complain about lack of services, improper care, be able to complain to code enforcement without fear of eviction. I think that this more or less accomplishes that. But there's a lot of flaws with regard to this whole expectation that landlords are now going to step up their game and get tenants to comply with appropriate behaviors regarding putting out the trash, regarding the level of noise, etc. Smoking is not a nuisance. No court is going to find it to be a nuisance. So what Mr. McGee is suggesting as a basis for enforcing that new requirement, I think, is something that we can reasonably expect the housing court to enforce. So let's change the language in the legislation to address these specific issues before and get the language right. Clarify paragraph 11 so it makes sense, so that I, as a lawyer, can understand, unless, the general public can understand it, and the rest of the actually
Judy, but I mentioned again, this is why the state legislature, not many more members could not come to the agreement to get a very good worked out piece of legislation. Do I have any motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move out of committee without recommendation.
I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, it's being held. So, it's a responsible for bringing up at the next meeting for Thank you.
Second.
Oh, just one thing, we hate being on the like this, trying to set up, we know we're gonna have no system set up.
people came on, and everything, nothing happened, we're working on it, so we don't like any better than the police.
And there were not comments made from people that didn't show up to speak, so there were nothing outside.
Just one thing is, will not be voted on the next meeting, because it has been amended, and it does have to be. Thank you.